Finally, we got Terry Hutchinson, a good friend, a great dude, and as George Pete put it yesterday, just an animal on the race course. Terry, congratulations.
Thank you very much.
The new North American Championship. Compare your victory here. Obviously, it's not the same excitement and hot stripper girls and everything that you got at the Med Cup, but from my eye, it looked goddamn competitive out there. How does it feel winning this one?
Oh, it's awesome, and actually, when you just said that, it just started to kind of sink in, because I truly believe that the competition here equally rivals what we were sailing on in the 52 this summer.
Really?
Oh yeah. I mean, and what you don't see is, here there's a lot of people that sail the boat that are don't make sailing their profession, but are very, very good sailors. And
sure.
And you go out and you race against teams like Full Throttle. Those guys have real jobs, so to speak, and when you're competing against them and doing a good job against that team, that you're sailing well.
Hell, you've got a woman from a J105 fleet passing you downwind yesterday.
She did great.
She did, but this fleet is full of talent.
It is full of talent, and that's the beauty of it, is that that just because certain people don't necessarily have cheers, Max, don't have the name of some of the more renowned sailors, it doesn't mean that they're not equally as good. And so, I think a lot of the things that we learned this summer, we applied to this particular regatta and helped make us better and more competitive. And then, with that being said, you can't say enough about Amy and Bear and Scott and Brian and the work that they did to kind of get us to this point.
Well, I'll ask you about that, because these people are some of my friends. Amy's a Charleston girl, and Bear is a good friend, and Scotty's a good friend, and Brian is good. They're all friends, and they're all friends of the site. Talk about how you arrived at this crew over the last few events.
Well, I basically handed the ball to Scott and said, "Do what you think's best," and we had a couple people. Really, Bear's position was the one that was most vulnerable coming into this event. I had a couple of the guys that we'd sailed with last year that I'm used to having trim and do stuff with, and Scott said, "I think Bear's the right guy to have. He has a lot of time in the boat," and without question, he was the right guy to have. It's when you sail with the type of talent from a Melges 24 experience on top of just being good sailors, it made my job a lot easier, because we'd be going upwind and Bear would just be adjusting the rig, and he was always a step ahead of me in regards to that. And that's that type of proactivity makes steering the boat and being fast and all the little subtleties that go into doing well in these events that much better.
Now you've got really between Brian is a quiet guy, ultimately is just uber confident and competent. Amy is spectacular at holding, as being the glue that holds it together. But Bear, you and Scott all have strong personalities. How did that work on the boat?
Really good, because, well, first of all, I have a lot of respect for both of their abilities, and I think conversely it all, it's not the mutual admiration society, but we all have enough respect for each other that when somebody says, "What do you think?" and they speak up and tell you what they think, you don't dismiss it whatsoever. You actually probably take it more on board than if they didn't say anything. And one of the items that we talked about coming into this regatta, the fact that we were a new team sailing together, was our biggest mistake would be not talking to each other. If at any given time somebody didn't feel like they could say something, then that was going to be a screw up, because inevitably that piece of communication that we would miss would probably affect our performance one way or the other. And so we focused hard on having conversations, even if they weren't the most pleasant ones at the time, to make sure it bettered our boat speed or our boat handling, or how I was driving the boat, and I made sure everybody on the boat was comfortable with the idea that at any given time they could tell me whatever they wanted me to do, I would do, because I was the rookie.
That's good to know. And
that's I think inevitably to be successful, for sure for this team, and for us to be successful, everybody needed to feel equal part.
I think that's good advice for any team. From the bottom to the top.
Yeah.
So you're a local boy.
Yeah.
And we had people on our report today weighing in and saying, Terry, as good as he is, he still calls my old man captain. How does it feel just coming in here and doing this in this fleet in your hometown?
It's
good
great
stuff.
Yeah.
So,
it is.
Quantum Racing, the question mark is what happens over the next year with you. You got a big world championship here, which is likely to be, by my prediction, the biggest the most attended World Championship ever in the United States, and possibly ever for the future because of the new slew of sport boats coming on the market.
Yeah.
So it may really be the heyday of the Melges this coming year. What's your plan?
That's a good question. I think you know, we need to look and figure out exactly what the plan is to prepare for a year from now. And you know, we talked about on the way in, our biggest mistake would be to think that this result is an indication of how good or bad we are. If we use this as if we look purely at it as our performance and take away the scores and say, okay, this is our platform for, you know, this is our base, and from here we have to get better. You know, we were able to come up with about a 30-point list of things that are obvious gains that we can do better. And you know,
and that's after winning a regatta by 15 points or whatever it was. 20 points.
There's a lot of, you know, when you sail, you know, we did a lot of lining up with the Blue Moon team and with Joe Fly and with the Porters and with Dave, and I mean, these guys are really, really fast. And while they're, you know, it was a tricky regatta, and so boat speed wasn't necessarily the key component, we were always fast enough to execute our game plan. But I can see pretty easily a lot of areas that I personally can do a lot better, and also that, you know, collectively as a team we could do better, and then, you know, working on our boat and continuing to improve our sails.
What do you think is your big weakness? Because
frankly,
frankly,
time right now is probably our biggest weakness. Okay. And so, you know, that was the one thing I know we did from Wednesday to today is we sailed better as a team each single day. And that
you had just got off a plane when you started this regatta, right? Fresh from a World Championship.
Yeah. So it was, you know, that was always going to be our biggest hurdle to overcome. But again, you know, Scott did really nice work of getting Bear and Brian and Amy involved in the program and doing the regatta in Charleston and getting the boat worked out and making sure everything was going to be good there. That inevitably allowed me to show up late and you know, be relaxed, and Scott felt relaxed, and you know, so with that, you know, I think our performance, because we didn't put a lot of pressure on ourselves to perform. Well, you know, there's always the pressure, but we didn't, you know, wouldn't say we have to win this. We didn't have to. We just have to make sure we sail better every single day and let the rest take care of itself.
Funny how you do better when it's a training regatta, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure I would go as far as a training regatta because I have high expectations, but your point is right, and there's a lesson there for us in the future. If we show up a year from now and have a lot of pressure on us to feel like we have to win this regatta, chances are you probably won't. And
meanwhile, your quantum sales obviously did well.
Yep.
And interestingly enough, and I asked Max this question, but interestingly enough, you had Quantum 1, North 2, Ullman 3. What do you think about that for the class?
Oh, that's probably the best thing possible for the class. I mean, you know, I haven't spent a lot of time in the Melges 24, but I know from the J24 class and from any one design class you sail in, the more the sailmakers are involved in helping develop and helping with the customer service and helping bringing the class along, I only see it as a gainer as long as they do it in a positive manner to benefit the class. And it seems like there's a pretty good, you know, the Melges are in a tough spot being the boat builder and a North sales rep, but they do pretty nice work of not, you know, of keeping that part separate. And obviously Dave and the Allman guys do very good work, and Scott and the Quantum guys do very good work. And so, you know, as a customer, I can't see it but a win-win, because everybody's, you know, fighting for a certain piece of the pie. And so if they keep it all in perspective and don't make it anything bigger than what it really is, it should be a really good thing for the class.
What are your plans for Key West?
Key West is a FAR 40. You know, I have
with Jim.
Yeah, with Jim on the Barking Mad, and we have a good schedule set up there for next year. We have the regatta in Miami coming up in November, where we do a match racing and then fleet racing, and then the boat will go to Key West and then Miami Beach Race Week, and then off to Europe for the Worlds in June. So it's you know, as always, it's, you know, with somebody like Jim, it's great to be a part of that team, because everything that we apply here, we've learned on the Barking Mad. Yeah. And you know, so it's, you know, fortunately or unfortunately, sometimes for Jim, he's the training platform for us getting better. But it's,
I think he's okay with it.
Yeah, you know,
you've won him some good silver. So
yeah.
All right, Terry. Well, thanks again, man. Congratulations.
Thanks, bro.
And we really appreciate your input on the site and your contributing and helping inform all the anarchists. They love to see you succeed.
My pleasure. Thank you very much.
Cheers, man. One more quick thing.
Yeah.
Anything to say to ISAF as they try and pick the Rolex Sailor of the Year?
No comment. comment. I think they chose their nominations a little too early.
Well, by my way of thinking, there's only one guy in the world that deserves it.
Cheers. Thank you very much for that.
Cheers, brother.